Morning, everybody. It's your boy Dave P with the cream. Stands for cash flow, real estate, and money with my main man, RJ Pepino. RJ, how's the vibe?
Feels good to be alive.
And of course, it wouldn't be coffee with the cream and the brewer without Eric Brewer himself. Eric, how you feeling today?
Doing good, man. I'm up and cracking at the beginning of the day, ready to go. It's freaking cold here. I'm ready to go.
Well, if it is your first time tuning in, Coffee with the Cream and the Brewer was created to keep Mr. Eric Brewer online on doing his Facebook Lives in the morning. Got put in Facebook jail, and we're doing everything we possibly can to keep him out. We talk about life, money, real estate, business, finance, family, pretty much anything that goes on in the day-to-day life of a real estate entrepreneur. And if you haven't checked out Eric Brewer online, it's the Brewer Method. This is the guy that brought the Novation tactic, the real estate strategy, to really the collective genius mastermind. It's been implemented by many, many people into many markets. And check that out, the Brewer Method online. Today, we are talking about acquisitions and dispositions within a real estate company. One of the hardest questions, and I'm sure Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, when you're building a real estate business, one of the big questions we've seen over the years at the mastermind meetings we go to within our own business is, how do we pay our team? So let's get right into it. What's the first thing that kind of comes up? Let's start with dispositions. We'll get dispositions out of the way and work our way into acquisitions. So when we're talking about dispositions, what comes up for me is we got obviously wholesale dispositions, somebody who is going to be selling wholesale properties. You got retail dispositions. We'll keep that one on the back burner because that's more than likely going to be a realtor. You can negotiate with your own realtor, but a wholesale dispositions rep, how do you pay your reps with the wholesale dispositions, Eric?
So this gets kind of tricky because two things. One, if you're thinking about being an investor or you already are an investor, this is good for you to listen to. The second thing is if you don't like your job or you want to make more money, you should also listen, because as we talk about how we pay these people, you can do some simple math and figure out how you can make six figures working for a real estate investor. And quite frankly, you certainly don't need any college. I got into this business, I barely graduated high school. The second thing is you really don't need much real estate experience, or at least for me, that's one of the things I'll talk about. I've found it to be better for us to sort of find someone with the right behavioral profile that matches our core values and then has what I call a good motor. Like they'll go, right? Like us three, whether you talk about it or not, we have a motor. Every morning we're up 7:50, planning to hop on here for 20 minutes, pour our hearts out, and do something that we're not getting paid for, right? That requires a motor. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about maybe getting into real estate, a great way to start is to work in dispositions or work in acquisitions, and make a really, really good living. Depending on what market you're in, you could easily make $60,000 to $100,000 in your first year, and not have a bunch of corporate red tape kind of BS to deal with. If you work for guys like us, you're going to get clear expectations, good training, good support, and then we're going to let you run, right? So with dispositions, the tricky thing for me is like right now, like the easiest thing in the world is to sell a house, right? It's like literally like the easiest thing in the world. So you got to be careful not to design a pay plan around dispositions being the easiest thing in the world, because literally you could have a VA like in Belize or the Dominican or the Philippines run your entire dispositions process. It's really just emailing, texting, cold calling, and if you have a deal, it's like dropping food in the fish tank, right? They all just like swarm to it and they're going to buy it, particularly if you're selling at wholesale values. The challenge is going to be, it wasn't too long ago where I remember it wasn't near that easy, right? Like you had to grind out to find the right buyer for the right house to try and squeeze, $10,000 to $20,000 profit out of a wholesale deal that you worked maybe a couple months and spent a couple $1,000 just trying to get. So for us, what we do is there's two things here I think are valuable. One, we pay a modest salary, right? Like we want about 30% of their annual income to come from salary. So Dave's probably like, well, why? Or anybody's watching's like, well, why, right? They're a producer. Shouldn't they be 100% commission? I've struggled over, I don't know, 15 years I've been in the business. When we were small and as we were growing, I wanted everybody to be 100% commission, right? Like you'll eat when I eat, dude. You'll make money when I make money, right? Like this is the business. This is the way it's got to be. And I always struggled to hire established people, like solid people. I always had to hire super young, inexperienced, and really someone that was willing to just risk it all to learn, right, the business or be mentored, or we're just infatuated with our business, or me as a salesperson, right? I could sell them on the concept of why they should make virtually no money for 3 to 4 months, with the hopes that they can eventually build a career for themselves. So by paying a salary, you can tap into corporate talent pools. You can get people that are insurance salespeople. You can get people that are, successful, established car salesmen. I've had a lot of luck, a lot of success hiring from the car business. You literally can hire, I believe a higher quality person that's maybe a little bit more established, but has a family and some, bills and stuff like that. And at the end, the concern for me would always be, what if I pay him 3 months of salary and he don't sell anything? Well, if you're communicating with them, if you have a scorecard, if you're holding them accountable, like they shouldn't go more than 3, 4, 5 weeks before you're having a conversation about that. And then if it's a person issue, which by the way, 75% of productivity issues are not people related. 75% of production issues, this is proven, are lack of clear expectations and a lack of training, right? So 75% of the time, if someone on your team's not producing, it's not them, it's you, because you're the person responsible for setting clear expectations and training them. So the real risk is you make a mistake, you hire somebody, they basically lied in the interview process, you misjudged their motor, they're screwing off when they're supposed to be working. I mean, inside of 30 days, you should know that if you paid them a $2,500 salary, it costs you $2,500. I mean, I know we don't want to light $2,500 on fire, but like if that's what it takes for us to potentially run the risk of hiring a quality person, I think you should have them on a modest salary for dispositions. It's like $2,500 and then about 2.5% of gross profit.
So that was bringing me right into the next question that I'm sure many people had. And if you're watching this video, welcome to Coffee with the Cream and the Brewer. Leave your questions in the comments below. We are keeping an eye on the comments. But the question that RJ and I always talk about is, do you pay a flat fee commission or do you pay a percentage of the property or of the profit? We've heard it both ways. What's your take on choosing the...
Oh, can I answer, Dave? Can I know.
Who's that guy? Who's the bald guy with the hand up? Okay, we'll take Eric. We'll take Brewer. Take it away.
So I think if you hire the right person, you pay them on profit. And here's why. They can have an impact on profit. If it's transactional, you run the risk of them wanting to get to the transaction, right? So in my experience, whether it's been in the car business, which I was in 15 years ago, real estate, I love people that have, and this is why you shift a little bit of their compensation to salary, so that as they do the deals, the smaller deals, they're making money. But if they're paid on profit, for every $10,000 they make us, they're making 2.5% or 2% of that back, right? So there's an incentive for them to work the buyer to pay a fair price or a higher price than what the initial offer might be. So now for us, our average wholesale profit's almost 30 grand. So, I know with some wholesalers, I mean, they might operate on like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 wholesale profits. maybe you're paying them a flat, but still, I mean, if you pay like what, a $500 flat, now you're paying 10% of your profit plus what you paid to your acquisitions agent plus a salary. You could start getting up to giving away 30% of your profit. The way that I like to do it is with a modest salary and then that small kicker of 2% or 2.5%, is that we always want to be below 20% total producer's compensation on a deal. So I have acquisitions agents that are paid, very similar way. And then they typically cap out at total compensation of 10% of the deal. I have an acquisitions manager that drives that department. They oversee every transaction. They support the acquisitions agents in helping them close their deals. He assigns wholesale numbers to everything. And then at the end of the month, he gets about 2.5% of all of the profit that ran through the department, whether we bought and flipped it, wholesaled it, or did a novation. And then that's normally about $400,000 for us in total profit that comes through our off-market acquisitions. So you got an acquisitions manager that's making six figures. So in a perfect world, you would end up, depending on your volume, you wouldn't really need an acquisitions manager per se until you probably had 3 or more acquisitions agents. I would tell you as an investor, if you're running an off-market to seller department, that's probably the most logical place for you as the owner to spend a good bit of your time. I mean, it all starts like we can't do anything unless we buy a house at a discount, right? Like renovating, renting, all that stuff only happens if we're able to buy homes at deep discounts.
Let me hop in here real quick. We're jumping into acquisitions. Let me just recap. We got a lot of people watching today, a lot of interest, and Brewer is dropping bombs today. He is definitely in his element. So kudos to you, Mr. Brewer. But what we talked about with the dispositions before we roll into full-fledged acquisitions is a modest salary, say 30% of the total annual compensation, 30% should come from a modest salary. That's going to attract more of a established person or somebody who's not really taking their first venture into real estate or being a guinea pig in your company. And you're looking at a 2.5% gross profit commission on a dispositions type of compensation plan. And now we're getting into acquisitions. And I know really this topic started because RJ had some really good points and questions. RJ, what questions come to mind as far as we get into the acquisitions piece?
Yeah, so my question, and you might have already answered this, so forgive me, but why do you base it off of gross, Eric, or do you take off your office expenses or the expenses that the company has to operate? Do you base it off of that, or is it gross? You said 2.5%.
Yeah, we do gross. Like my opinion is, and I could be wrong, is the 90%, 95% or whatever that's left for me is that's my responsibility to take my expenses out of the 95%. I think if you start, applying like cost per contract.
Brewers froze up a little bit, and RJ's question as we wait for.
How about now?
There you go, brother. So you were talking about how RJ's question was the percentage of commission to pay an acquisitions rep. Is that before company expenses or after company expenses? Go ahead, Eric.
Before. So the only thing that I deduct from it is the cost of acquisition. So if I make 20 grand, the acquisitions agent, let's say, makes 10%, that's $2,000. That drops it down to $18,000. That's what the dispositions person's paid on. We don't blend company expenses into that calculation.
Okay, and what about a salary for acquisitions or the acquisitions manager? You kind of started to touch on, 3 or more reps within your organization. You might consider getting a acquisitions manager. Touch on the compensation for the acquisitions manager, and is there a salary involved in your firm?
Yeah, so for most of those, the salary is the same. right? And then the way that they earn more money is they're getting either like, so for me, the hardest thing to do in our company is to buy a house from a seller for 40 cents on the dollar. It's the hardest thing to do. Like, I mean, literally, right? Like it's the hardest thing to do is to sit at someone's kitchen table and legally, ethically, and morally explain to them and convince them that they should sell $100,000 house to you for 40,000. Like, it's hard, right? It's hard to generate those leads. It's hard to manage those appointments, and it's hard to close those deals. So we pay a higher percentage of profit for acquisitions. That's where we find, from a sales perspective, our most talented people are. Dispositions, more of a business to business sale, right? So like the person that's buying a wholesale deal from you is buying it because they can make 20 grand. We've technically done all the hard work. We've cultivated the relationship. We've brought the transaction to a place to where financially it makes sense. That investor, that landlord, that flipper, all they have to do is fund the transaction and then, execute beyond that. So our everybody basically has the same salary. The way they make more money is that they get a higher percentage of a bigger piece of the pie.
And what percentage are you paying on the acquisitions? Is that part of the gross profit? You said it's part of the gross profit. Is not 2.5% though, right?
No, it's 6.5 with a cap of 10.
As you can see.
And then the way they get up to 10% is a combination of either unit bonus or gross profit bonus.
Can you touch on that?
Yeah. So bottom line is it's 6.5% until they hit 100 grand or 10 units, and then it goes to 10% retro to their first deal.
I like it. We got our first question coming in. It's coming from Mr. Phil Chadbourne. And Phil's question is, what is the expected volume for acquisitions and dispositions people? I think a lot of that might have to do with more factors playing in than the person itself. But Eric, Phil's question, what is the expected volume for acquisitions and dispositions people? For instance, deals per month, et cetera.
So I'll give you just my numbers, right? So we spend $50,000 a month in advertising across really a couple primary platforms: television, direct mail, data. That's a big expense for us. Then cold calling and texting. And the last piece is SEO. So that $50,000 for us generates about 450 leads. So you can do the math, right? It's like $100 and some bucks per lead. We're able to, and what we track is about 80% first day contact. Why do we track first day contact? Because we found that it's a direct correlation to whether or not we get an appointment. If we do, and then beyond that, we try and call people back within 60 seconds. So we either answer it live if someone calls, but about 70% of all of our activity is done through the internet. Like, people submit a form, even if they see a TV ad with a big phone number, and someone's like barking at them, they'll Google the company name and then they end up coming to us through our SEO. So we found if we reply or call them back within 60 seconds, we have almost a 90% contact rate, because they just filled the form out. They see a call, a local number. They put two and two together, like, hey, I just filled out that form. And then when they answer, they always say, wow, you guys are good. Like, I just filled that form out like 60 seconds ago. So there's this instant credibility. So we get about 450 leads a month. We talk to and have conversation first day with just over 80% of them. About 25% of that converts to appointment. And then we close on average 25% of our appointments. So if you do that math, right? If you have a calculator handy, you can do the math. 450 times 80%.
360.
Times 25%.
90.
Times 25%.
22.5.
There you have it.
So we're talking to We're talking to Eric Brewer. It's the Cream, RJ and I, Cash Flow Real Estate and Money with the Brewer. And to give a little context to Eric Brewer, because we're going to put a bow on this thing. I know Mr. Brewer's got his training gear on. He's got his supporting his local business gym trainer over there. Good for you. But Eric Brewer is somebody who does upwards of 350 to 400 real estate transactions every single month. And this just shows you the caliber of an individual running a high-level organization. He can spit his numbers off sitting in behind the steering wheel on a Facebook Live video. RJ, to bring us home, what I see you taking a lot of notes over there. That's really the best thing. And we appreciate you, Eric. And it's been a great experience. I'm actually kind of grateful Facebook put you in jail because we have a lot of fun with you every morning. But RJ, what else do you have over there, RJ, for Brewer before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thank you for sharing these nuggets. So for the people that are watching live, hopefully everybody's taking notes because I certainly am. And we're getting ready to also hire some more acquisitions reps in our company. And it's always good to get some fresh ideas from somebody who's doing it at a high level. So I appreciate that, Eric, for sharing. And one of the things we talked, I think it was the other day, was how do you keep people motivated? How do you keep people motivated staying in your company? And if you have clear set goals for that high level person to attain, and they know how you're going to be measured, they're going to stay because they want to be with a leader as yourself, Eric, that knows their numbers, knows what they're talking about, knows how to track success. And hopefully everybody on this Zoom call that's watching this understands that, a lot of our followers are getting ready to make that step to the next level. And that step to the next level means that you need to know your numbers, very, very, exact numbers. And just like how you guys are tracking your fantasy football stats and all this stuff that I don't really care about anymore, you got to know your company's numbers in order to get to the next level and in order to get your A players on your team.
It's a great point, RJ, just the evolution of an entrepreneur. But for more of Eric Brewer, you can find him at the Brewer Method. This guy is definitely on the cutting edge, running a high-level organization. Eric, what final points do you have as far as compensating acquisitions and dispositions team members, and bring us on home?
I'm going to give you 2 points. One, I'm going to change lanes a little bit. Dave, do you have access to Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on there right now.
Pull up Facebook and go to my page real quick. Outside of compensation, the other 4 days this week, we talked a lot about leadership. And then someone yesterday pointed it out. They used the terminology with me and called me. I was very embarrassed and flattered, but they called me a servant leader. And, we had a little bit of conversation around it. And I think if you listen to the last 4 days of what we talked about, you can put some definition behind what a servant leader looks like. But Dave, pull up this morning. This is what I woke up to.
Yep.
My Facebook page, I was tagged by someone that works for me. Her name's Julie.
I'm scrolling here. I'm looking at your morning workout 41 minutes ago. Brandy Landis, Julianne, I have it right here.
Read that out loud. And then when you guys are watching this, 2 things. One, if your people aren't saying this about you, work harder at accomplishing this. This is one of the things, in addition to KPIs, accountability systems, processes. When people believe in you as a leader, they'll work harder, they'll work longer, they'll put more heart and soul into what they do. Read that out loud, Dave.
To bring us on home, this is Julie Ann, somebody who works for Eric Brewer. And Julie says this morning, all my life, and I'm old, LOL, I've mostly worked for big corps until working for Eric at Integrity First / Liz Hamburger Team. I valued each experience for they are part of my journey, but the differences are stark. It's the little things every week, typically in some form or fashion for his employees, that just add up to an unbelievable thing. Whether it's apparel, hey, Marky, we need winter hats. Here's a hat, need a coat, here's a coat. breakfast, lunch, happy hour, team building away from work, dinners, being able to be part of the philanthropy projects, on a whim saying everyone leave the office at 3 and meet at Heritage Hills for apps and drinks, Christmas parties, and unexpected acts of kindness at Christmas. And not for 1 to 2 people, the entire staff. I don't know, like 50 or more now. So I'm just thankful for Eric Brewer. I may never be a business owner, but I certainly know how to be one if I ever was. Merry Christmas and thank you.
Like, if you are not and then for me, right, like that's some form of just a little bit of gratification. Like I work all year long to maybe have one person say that about me. And that's how you should run your business. Pay attention to your numbers, pay attention to your KPIs, pay attention to your finances, pay attention to your strategic approach to your business. But if you need to, and I said this yesterday, treat your people the way you would your customers. Like everything she just read off, right? Like we do all of that for our customers because we want to keep them, we want to retain them. We value, what it's like to have a repeat customer or those relationships and referrals. Why do we not treat our people with the same kind of care and compassion that we treat our customers? When you do, and then if you look, like it's 8:35 this morning, that's already been commented on and shared by like 10 of our people. That'll go viral inside of our organization by 12 o'clock today. That's the lesson. Pay and all that stuff, it's got to make sense. It's a percentage of your profit. There's benchmarks out there you can refer, whether it's from guys like Dave and myself and RJ. But that's where the real equity comes in. When you have people that feel like that about where they work, they'll stop at nothing to make sure you personally as the owner succeed.
Well, right from the heart of not only Eric Brewer, but you see it right here. You see his own people on there. So it makes me want to come work over at Integrity. I want to check out this Heritage Hills place. It sounds like you guys are having a good time. But join us tomorrow, 8:10 a.m., approximately 8:10 a.m. You're going to see myself, RJ. We are the Cream, Cash Flow, Real Estate, and Money. And, of course, with the Brewer, Mr. Eric Brewer himself. Find him online, The Brewer Method. It's your boys, and we will see you on the next video.